Do you ever find yourself endlessly scrolling through Netflix, Prime Video, Shudder, or any other streaming platform for hours at a time, looking for a good horror movie to watch? If so, you're in the right place. In this video, I'm going to be giving you 9 killer horror movies that will be streaming this month that you need to add to your watch list. We're talking multiple platforms too, everything from Max to Netflix. Now, if you enjoy talking about horror movies all year long and are always looking for suggestions to watch, make sure to like the video and slash that subscribe button. We've got some oldies, we've got some newbies. Let's see the most notable horror titles coming to streaming this month. You can't talk about horror without mentioning The Silence of the Lambs. It's one of only a handful of horror films to win Best Picture at the Oscars, and it's a masterclass in tension, performance, and psychological dread. At its core, the movie is about an FBI trainee, Clarice Starling, played by a perfectly restrained Jodie Foster, who's tasked with interviewing the infamous Hannibal Lecter, a brilliant psychiatrist and convicted cannibal, to help catch another serial killer, Buffalo Bill. But this isn't just about the hunt, it's about mind games too. Every scene between Clarice and Lecter crackles with unease, power dynamics, and eerie intimacy. And of course, Anthony Hopkins' portrayal of Lecter is nothing short of iconic. He's polite, intelligent, and absolutely terrifying. The film blends procedural thriller with psychological horror so seamlessly that you almost forget how disturbing it truly is until the lights are off and Lecter's voice echoes in your head even after the credits roll. The Silence of the Lambs is a horror essential, and thanks to Max adding it to their lineup this month, it's easier than ever to dive into this classic. If you liked the 2024 hit Longlegs and somehow you've never seen Silence of the Lambs, that's another scenario where I would highly recommend watching this movie. Moving on to Hulu, if you're into slow burn horror that sneaks up on you and then absolutely destroys you, The Wailing should jump straight to the top of your watch list. Directed by Na Hong-jin, this Korean horror epic starts like a police procedural. A small town cop investigates a series of bizarre, violent deaths after a mysterious stranger arrives in the village. But what begins as a crime story quickly morphs into something way more sinister, mixing possession, folklore, shamanism, and pure existential terror. At 2.5 hours long, it takes its time, but that's exactly what makes it effective. The tension builds like a fever. You don't realize how deeply it's getting under your skin until it's too late. The visuals are stark and beautiful, the performances are pitch perfect, and the final act, good luck sleeping after that one. So yeah, definitely more suited for those who are into slow burns. There's a genuine sense of cosmic horror in The Wailing, the kind that leaves you questioning what you just saw and what it all means. It doesn't hold your hand, and it doesn't really tie things up neatly either. It just burrows into your brain and stays there. If you liked Hereditary, The Exorcist, or The Medium, this one's absolutely in your lane, and with it hitting Hulu this month, there's never been a better time to finally experience one of the most acclaimed international horror films of the 2010s. If you've seen The Mist, chances are you're still not over that ending, and if you haven't, buckle up. Directed by Frank Darabont, yes, that Frank Darabont who did The Shawshank Redemption and The Green Mile, this film adapts Stephen King's novella into something far more devastating and more horrifying. It follows a group of townspeople trapped inside of a grocery store after a strange mist descends on their small town. And the catch is that there are these monsters in the mist as well, but as you might expect from King, the real terror isn't just outside, it's inside. This movie is a pressure cooker, man. The claustrophobia, the paranoia, the breakdown of morality, everything escalates fast, and it's not long before the survivors turn on each other. There's a certain character in this film, it's a woman, and she's one of horror's most hateable characters whose religious fanaticism fuels the group's descent into madness. And then of course there are the creatures, there are these giant interdimensional horrors that we only partially see, just barely enough to know that they're not really of this world. The effects might not be perfect by today's standards, but the atmosphere is relentless. What The Mist nails is that classic King idea, people are worse than monsters. In that ending, it's one of the boldest and most nihilistic conclusions in modern horror. King himself admitted that he preferred it over his original. The Mist is now streaming on Paramount Plus this month. It's intense, it's grim, and it absolutely deserves a spot in any horror fan's rotation. Next up, we're going to be talking about Shudder's new releases. Last year, Shudder released a ton of bangers like Mads, Daddy's Head, and Oddity. Is this the beginning of their tear through 2025? I sure hope so. If you thought fairy tales were just kid stuff, Norwegian horror film The Ugly Stepsister is here to rip that idea to shreds with a body horror version of the classic Cinderella story. This film reimagines the classic Cinderella mythos through a psychological horror lens, and it's pretty nasty. Or so I hear. Rather than experiencing the story through the Cinderella character's perspective, we're told the story through the view of one of the ugly stepsisters, Elvira. And I mean ugly, she's not really that ugly, but for the sake of the movie. So a woman marries an older man in hopes of obtaining wealth and privilege, but when the man dies on their wedding night, she finds out that he was actually penniless. Welcome to the club. Worried that she might be too old to find a new wealthy husband, the woman decides she will marry off one of her daughters instead. She basically tries to mold Elvira into a better fit for her husband. And what unfolds from there is a spiral of jealousy, body dysmorphia, and identity collapse as art and reality begin to blur. Think something like Black Swan meets Perfect Blue with a bit of the substance thrown in. Apparently there are very explicit sexual themes here, lots of overly done nudity, and people are saying a certain scene or two will make you vomit, which might just be a bit of the overhyped train that happens for plenty of films, but we'll see. Early reviews are saying that the film looks and sounds fantastic with great performances from our lead and the supporting cast. You know, I'm a sucker for cinematography and sound design, so I've got my fingers crossed in those categories. This is exactly the kind of movie Shudder was made for: artful, psychological, feminine, and completely unhinged. It's got cult favorite written all over it. It had a short festival run. It's skipping the theaters apparently, but now it's getting its home on Shudder. The trailer is edited in a way that gives me Substance vibes, and movie YouTuber Cody Leach basically says in his review of the movie that it is The Substance but grosser, while Dead Meat stated that it's tonally very different from The Substance. So I'm anxious to check out what this is. This should be hitting Shudder on May 9th. The Surrender is another new release hitting Shudder this month on the 23rd, and here is the IMDb synopsis. When the family patriarch dies, a grieving mother and daughter risk their lives to perform a brutal resurrection ritual and bring him back from the dead. Now, already from that synopsis, this seems like it's going to be more family drama and grief themes, similar to something like Hereditary or Daddy's Head. And from the trailer, it looks like we're getting the classic story of a daughter who moved away, not being near her parents anymore, and then coming back home when her dad is sick and regretting leaving and not coming back sooner. So there may be some parts of the story that feel more traditional and rehashed maybe even a little bit, but the ritual part is going to throw a wrench in the story that I'm kind of intrigued by. There's not much online about this film quite yet, so again, we'll have to wait and see. If I'm being honest, my hunch is that this might just be a throwaway film when all is said and done this year, but the trailer has some shots that look insane, so I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised. And now let's jump over to the streaming juggernaut, Netflix. What do they have up their sleeve this month for us horror fans? If 28 Days Later made zombies scary again, then Dawn of the Dead made them relentless. The movie is a remake of George A. Romero's 1978 film of the same name, but this isn't just a remake. It was Zack Snyder's debut feature-length film before moving on to create films like 300, Watchmen, and Justice League. Dawn of the Dead kicks off with one of the most unforgettable openings in horror history. By minute 7, all hell has already broken loose. A peaceful suburban morning turns into a bloodbath in seconds, and the tone never lets up from there. We follow a group of survivors who take refuge in a mall as the world outside collapses. It's gory, very fast-paced, and surprisingly funny at times, without ever losing the sense of impending doom. The zombies here don't shuffle, they full-on sprint. It's terrifying, and that instantly cranks the tension to 11. There's also a solid ensemble cast: Sarah Polley, Ving Rhames, Mekhi Phifer, Ty Burrell, Pre-Modern Family, all doing what they can to keep their humanity intact in a world gone feral. And if you're a fan of practical effects and gnarly kills, this movie delivers in buckets. It may not have Romero's original social commentary, but it makes up for it with raw survival horror, big set pieces, and a sense of dread that lingers even when the credits roll. This zombie flick is already streaming on Netflix at this point, so you have no excuse not to revisit this modern classic. Alright, it looks like Netflix is being overrun by zombies this month, as Train to Busan is also currently streaming on the platform. Train to Busan is a cut above the rest. The South Korean horror film is intense, emotional, and somehow finds a way to make a genre that often feels played out feel fresh, grounded, and devastating. The setup is simple: a workaholic father and his young daughter board a train from Seoul to Busan, just as a zombie outbreak begins to spread. What starts as a routine ride turns into a high-speed nightmare with infected passengers multiplying by the minute. But what really sets this film apart isn't just the action, it's the heart. Every character feels real, every sacrifice hurts, and the film isn't afraid to explore class dynamics, social selfishness, and the fragility of human decency when the world falls apart. A lot of South Korean horror films hold these themes, so there's no surprise there. And the zombies here are fast, twitchy, and terrifying. The train setting makes every encounter feel very claustrophobic and urgent, and the pacing never lets up. It's pretty much Snowpiercer meets World War Z, but with a little bit more soul. And that ending, it'll wreck you in the best way. Train to Busan is one of the most emotionally powerful horror films of the last decade, and now that it's streaming on Netflix this month, it's the perfect time to finally see what all the hype is about. The Fear Street saga is back, and this time it's taking us to Shadyside High's deadliest prom night. Prom Queen is the latest chapter in Netflix's horror anthology based on R.L. Stein's teen horror novels. Set in the early 90s, it captures the era of crimped hair, slow dances, and social hierarchies, all set against the backdrop of a brutal, bloody mystery. Someone is killing off the Prom Queen nominees, and nobody knows who's next. What makes Prom Queen work is the mix of slasher fun, teen drama, and lore-driven suspense, and like its predecessors, it embraces a love for horror history, this time channeling Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Carrie, but with modern pacing and diversity that hits with today's audiences. The kills are sharp, the characters feel lived in, and underneath the prom decorations and dance floor tension, there's a thread of Shadyside's cursed history tying it all together. This entry probably isn't going to reinvent the franchise, but it doesn't really need to. It leans into what works: stylish kills, solid characters, and a dark sense of humor that's kept this series on horror fans' radars. If you're a fan of classic teen slashers and/or you've just been waiting for Fear Street to return, Prom Queen is going to deliver for us, and it hits Netflix on May 23rd, just in time for graduation season. Hard Eyes is exactly what it sounds like, a horror movie where love gets dangerous fast. Dropping on Netflix just ahead of summer, this original film perfectly blends the slasher and rom-com genres. For the past several years, the Hard Eyes killer has wreaked havoc on Valentine's Day by stalking and murdering romantic couples. This Valentine's Day, no couple is safe, and it appears that now our main character, Allie, is the masked killer's new obsession. I was pleasantly surprised by this one. Director Josh Rubin, who directed and starred in Scare Me, and also directed Werewolves Within, brings us a rom-com slasher that hits all the right notes on both sides of the coin here. It's hilarious, cheesy, and perfectly gory. The comedy isn't the only thing that makes Hard Eyes stand out here. Its modern digital age creep factor does too. Social media plays a role, DMs, TikToks, location tracking. It's not just about being watched, it's about being known, and once the killer has their hard eyes on you, there's no escaping. The framework of the movie is also a classic whodunit, which I'm a very big fan of, where you don't really know who to trust and you're guessing who the killer is the entire time. I truly believe Hard Eyes has birthed a new iconic villain, and I could see it being the best traditional slasher of the year. You won't regret checking out Hard Eyes, especially with a magnetic cast that includes Mason Gooding, Olivia Holt, Jordana Brewster, and Devon Sawa. The best time to see Hard Eyes would have been in theaters around Valentine's Day, but the next best time is when it hits Netflix on May 8th. Let me know if you've seen any of these or are adding any of them to your watch list this month. Here is a quick recap of the films and where they're streaming. Make sure to like the video and subscribe if you love horror movies, and if you're looking for more horror movie recommendations, you can always check out this ever-growing playlist of videos right here on YouTube. This has been Nonstop Horror, where I never stop talking about the best genre around. I'll see you in the next one, and remember to embrace the fear all year long.